Uncover the sinister truth behind 13 cursed films that will leave you spine-chillingly haunted. The night wrapped around Sarah's home like a heavy blanket, smothering all traces of warmth and security. As a single mother juggling nursing shifts and 2 restless kids, the darkness felt suffocating. She was exhausted, but movie nights with Mia and Jake filled their tiny living room with flickering light and laughter, an escape from reality, even if just for a bit. But that Friday, a horrifying twist awaited them. In the dusty collection of old DVDs left behind by the previous tenant, they unearthed a film simply titled Cursed. It promised both thrills and chills, igniting a spark of curiosity. The title alone sent shivers down Sarah's spine. As they got cozy on the couch, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that crept over her like shadows. Laughter erupted as the opening credits rolled, but that joy faded fast. The mood shifted, thickening the air around them with an unspoken dread. In the eerie glow of the screen, the story unfolded, a cursed entity preying on families who dared to watch, leaving behind chaos and despair. An absurd notion, surely? But still, as the credits rolled, an uneasy feeling curled in her stomach, whispering doubts. The shadows deepened and began to shift unnaturally around the room. Was it merely exhaustion clouding her mind? The next day, dim laughter turned to concerned whispers as Mia and Jake reported flickering lights and an unshakable feeling of being watched. "Mom, it's so cold," Jake exclaimed, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Sarah shrugged it off, disbelief igniting a cold war within her. "It's just the chill of autumn. Surely, nothing more." But as the days trudged on, reality bled into their lives. Overhead lights dimmed in the corridors, and she heard faint, dissonant whispers that echoed down the stairwell. Each night fell heavier, laden with their growing anxiety. However, Sarah pressed on, trying to convince herself it was just her own wild imagination running rampant. Little did she know, the shadows creeping into their lives were no figments at all. One night, as she read books to Mia and Jake, Sarah felt a pulse in the air, an unhinged whisper announcing dark secrets. Her resolve began to waver as the kids discovered the film's chilling folklore online. "Mom. Families who watch this film, they all have something bad happen," Mia exclaimed. A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach, leaving her breathless. Just as she thought of tossing the DVD out, a siren's call rang through their hall, a laughter that wasn't Jake's. Panic seized her thoughts. Had her baby gone missing? Jake? She screamed, lunging through the suffocating darkness. Where was he? Fear propelled her outside into the neighborhood. Faces once friendly morphed into masks of suspicion as neighbors exchanged glances full of unspoken dread. Those smiles she once trusted turned sinister. The calculated calm shattered as she plunged deeper into the search for Jake. An overwhelming truth settled like ice in her veins. One of the neighbors, knew more than they let on. They'd all become part of the curse. The clock ticked menacingly, shadows twisted wildly around her. "Jake!" She called again, frail hope punctuated by the echoes of her voice. Centered on confusion, Sarah stood panting, a ghostly figure emerging at the edge of her vision, one that unerringly resembled her son. Panic clawed at her throat. The ultimate question hung in the air: who would be friend and who would be foe as she raced against time to unravel the sinister secrets crawling into their lives? The very fabric of her sanity began to unravel, each moment tightening around her like a noose. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the shadows wove around her, Sarah's heart raced, blooming dread swelling within her. Every creak of the floor sent shockwaves through her chest. Only the whisper of a name remained: Jake, lost amidst the growing darkness. As she teetered on the brink of panic, the question pounded in her mind: would she find her son before the night swallowed them whole? Or was the impending doom already too late to escape? The chill of despair tightened around Sarah like a vice. It pressed hard against her chest, and the breath she drew felt bitter with fear. Shadows seemed to dance just beyond her line of sight, teasing, taunting. "Jake!" She called again, louder, desperately searching every dim corner for the familiar shape of her boy. Seconds stretched into eternity as she stumbled through the darkness, dread twisting in her gut. The silence was heavy, like thick fog wrapping around her senses. Every rustle of leaves outside seemed amplified in the stillness, every breath felt like an intrusion. "You need to focus, Sarah," she whispered to herself, forcing her racing thoughts into submission. In her frantic pace, she turned and retraced her steps to their apartment building. The flickering bulb in the hallway cast unwieldy shadows that morphed and elongated, barely illuminating the path back to their door. Each step echoed with uncertainty, growing louder with the ache of panic. What if she found nothing? What if everyone knew but her? Once inside, she bolted the door. The lock clicked with an unsettling finality. She whipped around, and her heart dropped. There, in the living room, stood the flickering glow of the television, still on the cursed DVD still inserted. How could she have forgotten? She stepped closer, the screen illuminating everything with a sickly light. Images flashed before her eyes, a family in disarray, their faces etched with fear, much like her own. It was as if the characters on screen were pleading for help without uttering a word. "This can't be happening," she exclaimed into the silence. Mia's small voice echoed in her mind. Families who watch this film, they all have something bad happen. Was it the film that was truly cursed, or was the curse breathing life into their lives? Unshakable dread filled her veins. Grabbing the remote, she pressed eject, determined to rid herself of this terror. But nothing happened. A surge of anger mixed with hopelessness as she pressed it repeatedly. Still, the machine refused to spit out the source of her growing nightmare. "Jake!" she shouted, panic clawing at her throat. What if the whispers had taken hold of him? What if he was lost forever in that darkness? The shriek of laughter erupted again, this time booming from outside. It was high-pitched and haunting, completely alien. Sarah pressed her palms against her ears. No, she wouldn't listen to it. But curiosity gnawed at her. She sneaked to the window, the darkness outside pulling like a shroud, almost breathing. And then she saw them. Faces of children peered back at her through the pallid glow of streetlight. Their expressions felt wrong, their smiles stretched too wide. Mia and Jake had played with those children just days ago. What had changed? The laughter turned into a chilling chorus. The children began to chant, their voices melding into an eerie echo. "Join us, join us, join." Her pulse quickened. Were they calling for her? Or her children? Sarah slammed the window shut, sealing the freezing dread outside. The room felt overwhelming as the shadows crawled closer. She turned back to the screen, determined to confront the cursed film and end this nightmare. Gripping the remote tightly, she finally managed to pull it from the player. But as she did, a gust of wind swept through the room, throwing the door wide open, and the laughter spilled in, wrapping around her like poison. "Mom?" It was Jake's voice, impossibly soft yet filled with an undercurrent of something darker. Sarah blinked, heart racing. "Jake!" She spun around, desperate. But the room was empty, save for the flickering television, the haunting laughter swirling outside. "No, no." She gasped, feeling the icy touch of dread curl around her heart. Where had he gone? Suddenly, a shadow moved across the screen, a fleeting glimpse of a figure that looked disturbingly familiar. She took a step backward, fear clawing at every inch of her. Had the curse come to claim her family? As the laughter rose to a fever pitch, she realized she wasn't just fighting for Jake's life. She was fighting to keep herself from losing her sanity. The curse demanded a sacrifice, and she'd be damned if she let it take anyone else. But would she be able to stop it in time? With a new sense of urgency, she clutched the DVD tightly, stepping toward the door, the laughter growing louder, begging, pleading for her to join them. As her hand trembled on the doorknob, she knew she was racing against something far more sinister than she ever imagined. What would she find beyond that door? Would it be her children, or only emptiness? The laughter was a siren's wail, pulling Sarah toward the door like a moth to flame. She wrestled with herself, shaking her head, her heart drumming a frantic tattoo in her chest. No, no, no. She stammered, trying to drown out the beckoning voices that wrapped around her, slick and slippery, like tendrils of smoke. She could feel the chill radiating from the open door, a draft that whispered secrets and fears she wasn't ready to face. But Jake, where was her boy? He needed her. Gathering her courage, she stepped forward, adrenaline pumping. With shaky hands, she slammed the door shut, the laughter seeping through the cracks like poison gas. Jake! She called again, her voice shattering into the void that had enveloped her. But deep down, Sarah knew she had to look for him, not only in their home but outside, where those sinister children waited. She eyed the window once more, the pain fogged from her warm breath and the cold air pressing against it. The glow from the streetlight pulsed rhythmically, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to dance in anticipation. Summoning every ounce of strength, Sarah hurried to the window, peering out onto the street. The children's faces were still there, swirling in the half-light, their eyes glinting like shards of glass. Mia's friend Lily stood at the forefront, her mouth stretching into a smile so wide it almost seemed unnatural. Sarah pressed her forehead against the glass, fear striking her as she locked eyes with them. "What do you want?" she croaked. "Join us," they chorused again, their pitch rising and falling like a malevolent tide. The words echoed in Sarah's mind, striking at the heart of her maternal instincts, filling her with raw terror. "Please just come play." Horrified, she stumbled back, crashing into the living room table, sending a lamp tumbling. The crash jolted her, a sharp reminder of the reality that surrounded her, the creeping shadows, the insidious laughter, the absence of her children. The television buzzed softly behind her, flickering images now of dark figures waving, beckoning from within the screen. Faces she almost recognized twisted in panic, mouth agape as if caught in a loop of terror. She felt bile rise in her throat, they were trapped. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Hope flared briefly before being crushed by fear. Sarah fumbled for it, praying it was Mia or Jake, but the screen displayed a blocked number. She hesitated, breath hitching as she pressed accept. A voice, garbled and unsettling, oozed through the receiver. Join us, it's your turn." "No." She screamed back, but the sound seemed muted in the haunting symphony outside. "You cannot have my children." She slammed the phone down, feeling tears of despair prick at her eyes. With a renewed surge of determination, she propelled herself toward the kitchen, her mind racing. Was there anything she could use as a weapon? The shadows loomed, whispering disjointed fragments of her past, laughter from birthday parties, echoes of bedtime stories, playful shouts from the yard. They were taunts now, mocking her failure to protect her family. She yanked open drawers, throwing utensils aside. A knife glinted dully in the low light. Clutching it tightly, she turned toward the door. An idea molded in desperation, a chance to confront whatever this was. But before she could decide, the front door flung open again, revealing a torrent of laughter. The children stood there, their faces transformed, dark smudges marked their cheeks, eyes hollow and endless. "Mommy," called a voice she barely recognized, Jake's, sweet yet warped. He walked forward, but something was off, a distance in his gaze that made dread coil around Sarah's heart. "Come play with us." The shadows thickened behind the children, forming shapes that swirled and pulsed, waiting hungrily. Would he come back to her? Or was she losing him to this twisted realm? "Jake!" she shouted, voice raw. "Don't come any closer." A sharp, dissonant laughter erupted, reverberating through the air. It was a cacophony of madness, a sound that churned her stomach and threatened to swallow her whole. She froze, panic washing over her. As the children began to step closer, almost gliding, the darkness behind them shifted, morphing into figures that looked eerily like her family but distorted, wrong. What was happening? Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as she raised the knife, trembling in fear and resolve. Her entire world was threatening to unravel and she had to make a choice. Would she face the cursed shadows or let them take her children forever? Trembling under the weight of her decision, she stood at the precipice of despair and defiance. The answer to her questions loomed ahead, dark and sinister, and the laughter echoed, demanding its due. Would she be able to reclaim her children from the darkness, or would they be lost in that cursed film forever? The air was thick, heavy with dread as Sarah clutched the knife, its handle slick with perspiration. Jake's voice, twisted and beguiling, hung in the air like a poisoned arrow aimed directly at her heart. Come play with us. The shadows pulsated behind the children, undulating like a dark tide, threatening to pull her in. Stay back. She shouted, her voice wavering but fierce. Sarah's feet felt like lead, but the instinct to protect surged through her, igniting her hope. The children's smiles wavered at her words, flickering like faulty bulbs. A split second of doubt crossed Jake's face, and she seized that moment. Please, Jake. Come back to me. With each plea, the darkness around Jake rippled, as if her words held power over the shadows. But the moment was fleeting. The laughter returned, sinister and joyous, echoing through the night at an ear-shattering pitch, reverberating enough to track her heart's frantic rhythm. Mommy, we're playing hide and seek. Lily, at the front of the group, screeched with glee. You have to find us. Sarah's vision blurred with tears as the enormity of her situation seeped in. This isn't a game. She screamed, but the children giggled, delighting in their twisted ruse. A gnawing abyss yawned in her stomach. These were not the children she knew. They were something else, something hungry. In that moment, determination sparked within her like a flame. This darkness wanted to steal her children. It was breeding madness within them and within her, too. She took a step back, glancing towards the kitchen where her only chance lay. But as she turned, the laughter crescendoed, a cacophony that drove nails into the back of her mind. The children advanced slowly, deliberately, with otherworldly grace that sent chills down her spine. Their forms began to flicker, revealing past glimpses of what they once were, now marred and distorted by something none of them understood. Join us, Mommy. They sang, voices melding into one haunting melody that tugged at the edges of her sanity. Stop. She cried, thrusting the knife forward, her whole body trembling. You're not my children. The shadows recoiled momentarily, but then surged back, an army ready to consume her soul. She felt a rush of air behind her, as if the house itself was exhaling. The kitchen door creaked ominously, inviting yet foreboding. What lurked behind? Would it hold the key to freeing her children, or was it more perilous than the night outside? Sarah. A whisper, barely audible, fluttered out from the kitchen, a voice so familiar yet shrouded in confusion. It wasn't just Jake. It was the sweetness of Mia's laughter, tangled with darkness, warping reality around her. Instinctively, she started toward the kitchen, gripping the knife tightly. This was a gamble, a desperate chance to uncover a hidden truth amid the darkness. Was it a portal to rescue or a trap designed to lure her in? The children began to circle her, their eyes glittering with an unnatural light, the laughter morphing into whispers that clawed at her mind. Don't go in there, you'll lose yourself. It was both a taunt and a warning, a sick mirage of what lay ahead. Come find us. Jake's voice drifted through the haze, silky smooth yet laced with malice. Heart racing, Sarah hesitated at the threshold of the kitchen. Somewhere within, trapped behind closed doors, was the truth and, possibly, her salvation. Did she push forward into the unknown where the shadows danced in anticipation, or dare to stay with the children, watching helplessly as they transformed further into something malevolent? Her next move could cost her everything. With a surge of something that bordered on madness, she stepped into the kitchen, a storm brewing in her chest. What awaited her beyond, she could not fathom, but one thing was clear: the game had only just begun. And as the door creaked ominously behind her, Sarah could feel the darkness closing in, waiting for her to take the final step. The air shifted as Sarah stepped into the kitchen, the moment so heavy it felt like she was moving through wet concrete. The darkness enveloped her, thick and suffocating, as the faint sound of laughter faded. A shiver crept down her spine. There was no going back now. Inside, the dim light flickered uncertainly, casting long shadows that danced eerily along the walls. The remnants of her home, once filled with warmth and comfort, now loomed strange and unwelcoming. It felt like stepping into a trap. She felt it, a pulse of some dark presence, like a heartbeat emanating from the corners of the room. "Sarah," the whisper beckoned again, pulling at her resolve. It was Mia's voice, sweet and innocent, but laced with that same unsettling edge. Where was she? What had happened? As she moved deeper into the kitchen, Sarah noticed the table, littered with remnants of a chaotic dinner, scattered plates, a half-eaten meal, the family's last supper. Unease twisted in her stomach as she recalled the laughter that used to fill this space. Now it felt like a mausoleum, haunted by what was lost. Through the haze of her growing panic, one cupboard drew her attention. Its door was ajar, a sliver of darkness spilling out, as if something inside was waiting to be released. She took a hesitant step forward, knife poised, heart pounding in rhythm with her frantic thoughts. Inside, she found a box, wooden, unadorned, and beaten by time. It didn't seem significant at first glance, but something about it gripped her, a visceral sense that this could be the key. Fingers trembling, she reached for it, breath hitching nervously in her throat. The moment she lifted the lid, a cacophony of whispers erupted, familiar yet twisted. "Mommy! Help us!" They echoed into her mind, layering over one another, drowning her in a sea of horror. Faces of past memories flickered across her vision, happy, innocent, but shadowed by the darkness creeping in. The air turned frigid, sending icy tendrils wrapping around her. She staggered backward, gasping as that dark wind surged forward, swirling like a tempest. Visions stirred within her, Jake and Mia, laughing, playing games, oblivious to the shadows that clung to their forms. "Now you see us," another voice chimed, deeper, more sinister. It was right behind her. She turned quickly, knife raised, but there was only the void. The darkness seemed to thrum with satisfaction, taut with lingering energy. "Mommy, it's time to play," Jake's voice whispered, back in the living room, followed by the others, their playful tones dripping with something darker. The laughter echoed like a macabre song, teasing, enticing, threatening to ensnare her mind. Struggling to regain control, Sarah focused on the box. She rummaged through the contents, heart pounding. Suddenly, she touched something cool and metallic, a small locket. Clutching it, she felt warmth flood back through her fingers. A glimpse of memory, a picture of Mia and Jake, their bright smiles fixed forever in a moment before darkness had taken hold. "Mommy!" Mia's dulcet call rang out again, then faded to a cruel whisper, "You need to choose." Sarah felt the shadows tighten around her. They were alive, writhing and hungry, eager for her decision. She glanced back toward the doorway, a desperate path toward the laughter of her children. Yet she felt pulled toward the box, toward the locket that radiated hope mingled with fear. All at once, she realized what the children truly wanted: her sacrifice for their freedom, a price she was not willing to pay. But the choice loomed heavy, each moment stretched into infinity. With a primal scream, she sprang for the door, heart racing, shadows snapping at her heels. Was it too late? Had the darkness already claimed her? The last echo of laughter faded, replaced by a chilling silence that felt like a promise, one she couldn't ignore. And as Sarah crossed the threshold, the doorway slammed shut behind her. The laughter returned, but this time it was her own voice that joined in, warped and sinister, echoing deeper into the dark. What had she unleashed? The weight of the darkness pressed against Sarah like an oppressive fog, wrapping around her mind. Panic surged as she tumbled into the living room, desperate to escape the whispers that now filled the air. "Why are you doing this?" she shrieked, her voice trembling with fear. The shadows twisted and wove through the furniture, creeping closer with each frantic heartbeat. Through the swirling darkness, her eyes darted back toward the closed door, her only escape route, now solidified behind her like a fortress. "What do you want?" She cried out, feeling the locket chill in her grasp, a reminder of her children ever elusive, trapped between two worlds. "Mommy, come play." The voices echoed off the walls, growling and teasing, blending joy with malice. Her own laughter rang out, changing from a sound of joy to one of torment, reverberating back at her like an eerie chorus. "Stop it." Rain began to patter against the windows, soft at first but quickly intensifying into a sinister drumroll. The shadows stretched longer, darker, as they flickered in response to the growing storm. Sarah recoiled as figures materialized in the corners of the room, featuring the familiar shapes of her children, faces painted with wide, unnatural smiles. "Come and join us, Mommy," they chimed, their voices layered, echoing in unison. But their eyes, those hollow, vacant eyes, transformed the innocence into something unfathomable, something wicked. Heart pounding, Sarah tightened her grip on the locket. A sudden warmth radiated from it, momentarily pushing back the encroaching dread. She glanced down as a shiver coursed through her, the faces within the locket seemingly pulsing with life, a last desperate hope. "Help us. You have the key." Mia's voice pierced through the chaos like a beacon. But its edge was dark, laden with an unholy urgency. Sarah felt the pull within her gut, a tug-of-war between the love for her children and the icy grip of the shadows wreathed around her. "What key?" she shouted, drowning in despair. The laughter twisted into an unsettling cacophony, snarling as shadows lunged towards her, fingertips reaching out like skeletal hands, desperate, hungry. "No, no, and oh." Sarah backed away, gripping the locket tighter. It flared with warmth. "You don't want this. You don't want me." But the shadows surged, swallowing her words, transforming them into silence. Suddenly, the laughter was replaced by a haunting silence. The darkness paused, as if deliberating, allowing her a moment, an instant of peace soaking through the fear. Yet that hope was only an illusion, fraying at the edges. The figures of Jake and Mia loomed closer, their expressions morphing, joy bleeding into sorrow, playfulness into agony. "Mommy," they whispered, their voices trembling with a chilling finality. "You must choose." A heavy tremor shook her as the shadows slithered around her legs, weights of guilt and anguish anchoring her to the ground. Her breath hitched in her throat dry. She couldn't let them become a part of this darkness, she wouldn't let it take them. "Together. We can do this together." But the children just stared, their gazes transforming into something anguished, eyes widening as the darkness behind them pulsed with hunger. "Choose, Mommy," echoed their voices, mixed with that sinister hum, throbbing and demanding. Sarah's heart raced as she felt her resolve fading, edges eroding into despair. The choice had come too late, like the storm that raged outside, ruthless and relentless. Right then, the front door creaked open, rain-soaked wind billowing in, the stench of something rotten filling the air. The children's surprised faces shifted into shadowy grins, beckoning. The threshold loomed before her, an uncertain escape, veiled in trepidation. And as Sarah hesitated, there came a soft cry, delicate yet tinged with pain. "Mommy, please." What lay beyond that door? Could it be freedom, or something worse? The storm laughed right along with her, plunging Sarah into uncertainty as she slowly took a step forward. But behind her, the unseen presence surged, and shadows closed. In an imminent threat from the very darkness she fought against. Could she dare to find out what awaited her? The gusts of wind howled through the open door like the cry of some tortured soul craving escape. Rain blasted in, soaking the floorboards, mixing with the foul air that curled around Sarah's legs. The stench was sickly sweet, like decaying fruit left to rot under the summer sun. She forced herself to breathe, but each inhale felt like a jagged knife scraping her throat. "Mia. Jake." She called desperately, her voice cracking under the weight of dread. They didn't respond, their faces contorting in the shadows, twisting between longing and something darker. "Mommy, we need you," they echoed, their sweet tones tainted with something sinister. Was it despair? Anger? The shadows pulled tighter around her, choking her resolve, as if every breath she drew made the darkness stronger. "Choose," the whisper echoed once more, pulsating through the room, riding on the wind that whipped past. As she stood paralyzed, her heart racing in her chest, the swirling darkness suddenly churned with a different energy. The figures of her children dissolved into black mist, only to reform a grotesque amalgamation of what they had once been and something else, something that didn't belong. Their smiles faded, revealing gaping mouths lined with razor-like teeth. She stumbled back, her breath catching in her throat. The locket in her hand pulsed wildly, warmth radiating from it again, battling against the encroaching coldness of despair. "Help us," the voice hissed, now mingling with a rasping laughter that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. "Please," she begged, clutching the locket. The warmth intensified, urging her to reach for it, to dive deep into the twisted power it contained. But fear gripped her harder. What if that power was only a further impediment to her escape? Lightning cracked outside, illuminating the walls of the living room, casting long shadows that danced and flickered like flames. In that brief flash, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, reflecting back a shell of who she once was: hollow cheeks, wild eyes, the remnants of sanity clawing for survival. She looked more of a figment of the darkness than the mother she desperately wanted to be. The darkness surged again, and from the depths of it, something larger began to take form, an entity, woven from the old memories of her children, sorrowful yet monstrous. "Mommy," it taunted, its voice the sweetest melody turned sour. "When do you choose us?" Sarah's heart pounded harder, a drumbeat echoing through the suffocating silence. The walls seemed to constrict, the shadows swelling, hungry for her surrender. "No!" she shouted, fighting back against the growing trepidation. "You're not them. You're not my children." But as she screamed, the shadows only laughed, a chilling, collective sound that rattled the very foundation of her home. She envisioned the door once more, the tantalizing possibility of freedom lurking just beyond it, and yet, it felt more like a trap, the darkness beckoning her closer. Would she really be able to escape the nightmare? Then, in a split second of clarity, she remembered the tales her grandmother used to tell about the darkness that dwelled in the universe, waiting to snatch away light. She needed to find that light within her, to claim it, to confront the darkness. What if the key was more than just an object? What if her love, however faltering, was the true key? "Go away!" she screamed. "I am not afraid." The shadows responded with a furious roar, a cacophony of rage that vibrated through her bones. The air became electric. She clenched her fists, feeling the warmth of the locket pulse in tandem with her heart, strong and defiant. But then, was that a claw reaching from the dark? Or was it a hand, a child's hand grasping for hers? Mommy, what would she choose now, standing on that precipice between love and darkness? The storm raged, the laughter grew louder as shadows swirled around her feet, dragging her closer to the abyss within her own home. And somewhere in the chaos, Sarah felt her resolve wavering. Could she truly face what lay beyond, or would the darkness consume her entirely? The shadows pulsed as if they were alive, swallowing Sarah's cries. The laughter echoed, a ring of triumph that tightened around her neck like a noose. "Choose us, Mommy," the chirpy tones twisted into something sickeningly sweet, urging her to yield, to let the grip of despair take hold. Lightning split the sky again, igniting the darkness for a heartbeat. In that brief moment, she saw at her children, their faces once full of life, now grotesque parodies of innocence. Their eyes were bottomless voids, calling her, beckoning her into the depths of a nightmare she had not wished to access. "Stay away from me!" Sarah shouted, her own voice foreign in the suffocating atmosphere. The locket burned against her palm, a reminder of the warmth that once existed in her home, the love that had been overshadowed by this terrifying apparition. Was that love still inside her, hiding beneath the layers of fear? With each second, the air thickened, and the walls seemed to bend closer, as if her very surroundings conspired to crush her. The electricity in her veins surged. Fear clawed at her mind, whispering vile suggestions. Then, she thought of Mia and Jake, no longer trapped in this twisted form. Images of their laughing faces flooded her mind, their warmth replacing the chilling darkness around her. "I see you," she cried out, her voice growing stronger, filled with a glimmer of hope. "I want to let you take them from me." The shadows jerked, recoiling as if struck. Their laughter turned sharp, bitter. You think you can fight what you have already lost? They hissed, anger vibrating through the air with bone-chilling intensity. You know nothing. Sarah roared, focusing on the light kindled in the depths of her heart, a flickering flame in a sea of black. She reached out, desperate to summon whatever strength her love had to offer. The shadows lunged at her, claws extending from the void, but she did not waver. Together. She shouted, and for a split second, time held as her unyielding will connected with the locket. A warmth surged from within, trailing through her limbs like molten fire. The locket glowed, illuminating her surroundings with a fierce light that pushed back the advancing darkness, wrestling against it. But just as it began to illuminate the chaos, the laughter shifted to a screech, reverberating through her skull, setting her teeth on edge. You think it's that simple? Your love is weak. The entity, the amalgamation of her children's memories, advanced, all jagged edges and hollow eyes. Mommy, they called, but the sweetness was laced with a seething rage. Come back to us. Sarah took a step back, the locket's light shimmering wildly, revealing her true fear, the possibility of choosing wrong. What if it were just a trick? Her mind questioned. Lightning struck again, and in that blinding flash, she saw a choice: embrace the fear and merge into the shadow where she could lie beside the remnants of her children, or wrestle against the whispers and find a way to feign the darkness. Her heart pounded. Could she bear to let go of the past? Would it lead her to freedom or doom her forever? Every instinct screamed for her to run, but she felt rooted in place, battling with the weight of duality. Mommy, their voices rose like a haunting chorus, and beneath that sound echoed a thunderous pulse, a sinister heartbeat compelling her to decide. Just as she found her footing, a piercing crack tore through the thunder, and the world around her began to shimmer in an unnatural glow. The shadows flickered, hesitating, as if they sensed something powerful approaching. And then a terrible cry erupted from deep within the abyss, a sound that shattered her resolve. Just what kind of darkness had she awakened? With the storm raging and shadows stretching, Sarah felt herself teetering once more. She had to act, had to choose, but could she muster the courage to confront what waited beyond her comprehension? What awaited on the other side of that terrifying threshold? A low rumble reverberated through the ground, an ominous reminder of the storm above. Sarah's heart raced, pounding so hard she thought it might burst. The shadows twisted and danced, yearning to reclaim her. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet her feet felt glued to the cold, damp earth as a wave of icy dread crept up her spine. Mommy, please. The voice was clearer now, more insistent. Was it Mia? Was it Jake? Or was it the dark thing trying to ensnare her memories? Each syllable dripped with expectation, as if the shadows were hanging on her every thought, waiting for her to make that fatal choice. The locket pulsed in her hand, a lifeline against the encroaching night. A breath of warmth rushed through her, but it felt fleeting, like smoke slipping through her fingers. I want to let you take them. She screamed again, trying to anchor herself to hope. She had to find Mia and Jake, or risk losing herself to the darkness forever. With every fiber of her being, she pictured their faces joyful, untouched by fear. Her resolve solidified. They deserved to be freed from whatever twisted fate had ensnared them. Together. She shouted, her voice echoing through the tomb-like atmosphere. Light burst forth from the locket, illuminating the room with an ethereal glow. The shadows shrank back momentarily, hissing like cats caught in a sudden stumble. But it wasn't enough. The darkness writhed, angry and relentless. You think your love can save you? They taunted. You have already failed them. An electric gasp filled the air as reality warped. The room elongated and twisted, stretching like a haunted reflection in glass. The laughter turned into a series of sharp screams, echoing around her, crashing against the walls like waves battering a shore. The grotesque silhouettes of her children hovered at the edges, flickering, their hollow eyes pleading and accusing. Just then, another flash of lightning illuminated a figure deep within the chaos, a tall, shadowy mass, its form shifting and changing like smoke in the wind. Sarah squinted, trying to discern its features. Who are you? She demanded, fury welling inside her. The entity let out a slow, mocking chuckle. Your old friend, love. I have been waiting to reunite you with your children permanently. Despair washed over her. She wrestled with the thought, was this thing truly a part of her? The fear it held was old and familiar, a friend she never wished to meet again. You're not them. She spat, clutching the locket tighter as its warmth surged anew. The shadows twisted, blending with the darkness to become one malevolent force. Sarah swayed, almost succumbing to the pull of those familiar wails. The visions of her children danced tantalizingly close, their hands reaching out, beckoning her to join them. Mommy, please, they whispered, and for a moment, the world fell silent. In that haunting silence, she could feel the weight of their longing pressing against her chest, begging her to give in, to join them in oblivion. But what would that mean for them? What kind of parent would she be if she abandoned their legacy, surrendered to the darkness? I choose to fight for you, she declared, defiance pouring through her veins. The outburst ignited a reaction, the shadows recoiling like a wild storm briefly lifted by a sudden gale. But just as hope flickered anew, a rush of air swirled around her, flooding her senses with the scent of decay and rot, pulling her closer to the abyss. No. You can't take me, Sarah shouted, pushing back against the encroaching dark. The locket flared, a blinding blaze driving the shadows back, but at that moment, she felt a tremor beneath her feet, an ancient power awakening from its slumber. A heartbeat thundered in her ears, and the room began to shimmer with a sinister, pulsating light. Cold fingers brushed against her temples, whispering secrets long buried. You will never escape, they hissed. The walls shimmered and shook violently, cracks splintering through reality itself. Sarah stood at the precipice of chaos, faced with the ultimate choice: dart into the consuming darkness to reclaim her children or break free, leaving them behind forever. What terrible truth would unravel if she jumped into that abyss? Would she find them or lose herself to the shadows? The storm raged on, shadows swirling around her, beckoning. What now, Mommy? Their voices teased in a chilling crescendo. The answer hung in the thickening air, suspended like an unspent bullet ready to strike. With the storm raging around her, Sarah felt the tension mount within. She stood at the edge of darkness, heart pounding in rhythm with the claustrophobic buzz of the shadows. The laughter of her children, twisted and sorrowful, encased her like a bitter shell. Do I jump? She pondered, fear gripping her throat like icy steel. The shadows writhed, eager for her submission, but deep down, clarity blossomed amidst swirling chaos. No! She screamed again, louder this time, a defiance that cracked the oppressive darkness. She thought of Mia and Jake, their laughter echoing through the hallways of her memory, free and unchained by whatever malevolence preyed upon their innocence. If she took a leap into that darkness now, would she truly find them? Or would she lose herself to despair, leaving them trapped within this haunting realm forever? No way. Sarah drew in a breath, fiery determination filling her lungs. I will find a way. For the first time in that cursed night, the locket warmed in her hand, pulsing like a heart, urging her to focus on the love she felt for them, their beautiful memories unmarred by horror. She could feel their essence wrapped tightly around her like a protective shroud. Together. She cried out once more, her voice echoing as the shadows shrieked in response. They were not just the memories of her children, they were a representation of undying love. She closed her eyes, imagining Mia's freckles dancing in the sun, Jake's infectious laughter ringing like music in the air. Their energies swirled within her, creating a shield against the shadows that threatened to consume her. The air shimmered with her resolve, the chaos warping into a swirling backdrop that amplified each heartbeat. She took a step forward, feet firm against the floor, ready to confront whatever darkness loomed. As she moved, those familiar faces emerged from the shadows, the true forms of her children, fraught with fear but still whole. Their eyes held strength, and she could see through the darkness that they were beckoning her closer. With a surge of courage, she lunged forward, reaching out for them. I'm here, she shouted. The moment her hands touched theirs, a bolt of warmth rushed through her, electrifying every nerve, ending like a lightning strike. The shadows howled in fury, twisting wildly as if they were frantically reaching for their lost grip, but it was too late. The locket pulsed brighter, illuminating the room with light that pushed the darkness back, unlocking all the warmth and love she had so fiercely protected. Mommy Mia's voice chimed sweetly, mixed with relief and joy. She could feel Jake squeeze her hand tighter, their bond re-established, stronger than any curse could fracture. And just like that, the true power of her love surged forth, ripping the shadows apart. A stunning light enveloped them, swirling around the darkness, pushing it to the fringes. The laughter turned to screams, the once familiar outlines of her children transformed back into radiant beings, filled with life, as they pulled her deep into the light, igniting a cauldron of love that swallowed the dark. The room took on a different form, colors bursting forth, music ringing bright in the air, reality colliding against a vibrant canvas laid bare. Suspended in that moment, Sarah felt an all-consuming clarity. She was free. They were free. As the darkness shattered like fragile glass, she caught sight of twisted figures dissolving into nothingness, echoes of fear replaced with triumphant laughter. Sarah glanced down at her children, joy radiated from them, and in their eyes, she felt the warmth of home return. "Mommy, we did it!" Jake exclaimed, his grin bright and real. Together, Mia added softly as she hugged her brother tightly. The shadows had been defeated, but the aftermath of that battle hung like a heavy fog. Although the memories lingered, Sarah knew they belonged to the past, not to define nor shape their future. With the storm subsiding, a newfound warmth filled their home, the light spilling through every window, brightening the spaces that had once been consumed by fear. Together, they stepped out into the morning sun, laughter rising like a melody around them, a promise of brighter days ahead. And as they walked away from the remnants of the night, Sarah held her children close, heart full. The nightmare was finally over. They had reclaimed their lives. This was their beginning and end to the curse, a promise of love, unbroken. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more exclusive stories like this. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your love. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful ending. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.